So Claudine Gay, the now former president of Harvard, resigned today. And it brings up some very interesting issues. It seems that it's implied that her First Amendment rights or some other rights were infringed as, quote unquote, the mob went after her. Well, let's talk very briefly about this. I'm going to be as quick as I can on this. We need to make a very clear distinction. In fact, we need to make we're really bad at making distinctions, period, in this society right now, and it's a travesty. When government acts, under every circumstance, it should be restricted from acting against the rights of others. No government action should infringe the rights of any individual given in the Bill of Rights or within the restrictions that are placed in the base Constitution, which lays out the proper means and form of our government. If government does that, it's a criminal act. Now, there are gray areas or interpretations, but to be candid, in modern American culture, in the last 70 years at least, maybe up to 80 years, the culture that we live in has unnecessarily made those rights gray areas. For example, the Religious Liberty Clause of the First Amendment clearly says that government may take no action to form religion. And we always got into that when it came to a Koresh or a Hanukkah symbols or anything else displayed on government property. That's one thing. But on the other side of that, the government may not prohibit the free exercise. So you have an individual right to exercise as a citizen your religious freedom in any government institution. And so that was a gray area that was imposed that just doesn't exist. The same with First Amendment. And right now, the American government is with great vigor seeking to shut down free speech. We see that in the Missouri v. Biden case, what's been revealed there. We saw it with the Twitter files and other places. So that's an absolute clear line of demarcation. This is why the Patriot Act is an illegal law. It fundamentally is an illegal law because it violates Fourth Amendment rights. That's why the FISA courts should not exist in their present form. Because it's an entire violation of Fourth Amendment rights and due process rights. So that's a given. It becomes more gray sometimes when we talk about private institutions, and this is a challenge. But because Harvard, like other universities, take money from the federal government, this is why Hillsdale College will not, it also is subject to these same things. So Claudine Gay has been let go. Why should she have been let go? Well, I'm not entirely certain that the First Amendment argument is the strongest one but it is one. Because Harvard sucks at First Amendment issues or free speech issues and academic vigor. Like their whole program is beginning to suck. There's still some top quality education that goes there, but the fundamental core education of students sucks anymore because they have no moral character. They have no ethical considerations. They have specified outcomes that fit the desires and assertions of a small group of people. For example, Ibrahim Kendi came out with a statement. This is what he said about Claudine Gay's resignation. Racist mobs won't stop until they topple all black people from positions of power and influence who are not reinforcing the structure of racism. Okay, the guy is an idiot. First of all, he's corrupt. He's misspent millions of dollars that were given to him. So that he has any authority to say anything, he should be ashamed and embarrassed of himself. That's the first thing. The second thing is this. You talk about mobs going after people to shut them down? Ibram Kendi calls white people inferior in a racist manner, and he particularly incites mobs in many ways. See, we've got to understand what we're talking about here. Human beings are bad. 6,000 years of recorded human history proves the moral depravity of mankind. I make that assertion constantly, and it is there. Claudine Gay is subject to it. Ibram Kendi is subject to it. I am, you are. Everybody is. We only do good when we work really hard to do good. And that brings me to the next point and the stronger argument for Claudine Gay having been expelled from that institution. No person who has a broad or specifically malignant acts of plagiarism in their PhD papers, when that's found out, that should be absolutely stripped from them. We should have that standard. Academic institutions should have that standard. People should be called out for that. If, therefore, on that basis, which is an objective basis, by the way, and that's why I say and or malignant, because it might be broad and for some reason not be malignant, and we can adjudicate this. But let's be honest, when it's broad, it's likely malignant. If you work in academic circles and you have broad instances of plagiarism, that's the chances of that not being malicious are low. And even if it's not malicious, the fact that you did it and didn't know you were doing it proves that you are not qualified for that degree. So the degree should be stripped. And if the qualification at Harvard for being president is that you have a PhD, then that also should be stripped. Like that should be an immediate disqualification if that's what their standard is for that position. So there's abundant evidence that Claudine Gay is not qualified. And I'll close with this. This brings us to the basic situation that we're in right now. We are in a relativistic society that bases its judgments largely upon what makes them feel good, what they perceive to be fact, and to break any rules along the way to get to where they deem things ought to be. To break any rule, even to break laws in some instances, and or to harm the life of others to get advanced what they believe ought to be done. That's not how a free society works. A free society works where people make their case with one another publicly and otherwise so that the best ideas win. And they should do it in a manner that uses the tools of logic, making valid premises, putting them together in appropriate ways to come to valid conclusions based upon reality. We have lost that because there are political objectives on the right and the left, by the way. Because the Patriot Act is a problem of the right. The left is part of that too, obviously. But that was a George Bush policy. And it still continues to get supported by Republicans. Many Republicans in the House and the Senate. And that needs to stop. It's objectively wrong. The Patriot Act is objectively a violation of the Fourth Amendment. And it should be retracted in every way. So the relativism of this society allows us to ignore the Constitution, which is the prime mover for us being in the kind of debt we are right now, and to be in a position where we have a socialist form of thinking leading to more and more activity by the federal government. That's got to change. And we need to change it quickly. This is what you should be asserting at the ballot box. This is the expectation you should have on every member of Congress, even of your own party. And it's fundamentally up to us citizens to make it happen. We have a soft revolution every 2 years. It's called elections. It's nonviolent. It's pugilistic verbally. It's verbally pugilistic. And it ought to be, because we've got to come to the right conclusions. Plus, may the smartest man win, because those who work better win. That's why Republicans lose all the time, or at least inconsistently win, very inconsistently win, because they don't work hard for elections. They just make sure that they get their consultants paid. But that's a video for another time. This is our situation. This is what I think we need to understand about the Claudine Gay situation, because she objectively violated what people understand ought to be appropriate. There you go. I may comment on it more, and we'll be keeping track of it.